Okay, the next thing we're going to work with is the Web Soil Survey. The Web Soil Survey is a powerful tool out there. It's out on the web. It's accessible by anybody. It's been around for a while. It works a lot better now than it did a few years ago. There is some data, as I mentioned already, that I've had some issues with. Hopefully they fix that, but currently, as I'm making this recording, there is some data out there that's very useful and very nice to have, but currently is not available for a lot of places. I removed that data from there. Maybe it's for political reasons, I don't know. But there is some stuff out there, at least for this assignment, that you will be able to do. One assignment says if you can't find it, don't worry about it. One of the questions on the assignment as you do it. So let's talk about the Web Soil Survey first, and then I'll let you get to the assignment, and actually I'll demonstrate a little bit about the survey and how it does work. So again, there's a link there in the assignment how to get to it. If you ever want to get to it, all you got to do is Google Web Soil Survey and it'll find it. You get to that Web Soil Survey initial page, there are some instructions and stuff, and then you just start it. And again, I'll show that in a little bit. Once you start it, your first step is going to be defining an area of interest. There are plenty of instructions there on how to run this. So anytime you get in there, you should be able to read your own instructions. But again, if you watch this video, hopefully that should help you out with it too. So step one, define an area of interest. In other words, you're going to draw some hatch marks over your farm, wherever it happens to be at. Next is you click on a tab there and you go to the soil map. And that's going to be part of the assignment, is for you to take a soil map, create a printable document of that, and that printable document then is going to be a PDF file that you can upload to me. And then finally, to find out information about your soil, there's another tab in there called Soil Data Explorer, and then under there are several other tabs on the lower level there that will actually be able to find out different information about those soils on that soil map. Now, one of the questions in your assignment is going to be all about land capability classes, and I want to explain just a little bit about land capability classes. That is not necessarily how productive a soil is. What land capability classes tells you how limited is that soil for your use. Class 1 land, as you can see on this diagram, bottom right hand corner, looks fairly flat, fairly level. Class 1 land has no limitations. If you can buy yourself some Class 1 land, you can go out there, farm it, corn, soybean, rotation, moldboard plow in the fall possibly if you want. There aren't any rocks in it, it doesn't need any tile, it's just perfect land to work with. That doesn't mean it's going to yield great, okay? It just means it's easy to work with. And typically it is some of your best yielding land also, but not necessarily. Then there's Class 2 land, not quite as good, and you notice they're always in Roman numerals. Typically when they express them, sometimes you might find them in regular numbers, but they're Class 2 land is listed there. There's a Class 3 land, Class 4 land. Anything Class 1 through 4, for most purposes, is considered farmable, and you can raise crops on it. The higher the number, for example, Class 4 compared to 1, the more limited it is in what you have to do with it. On these, the letter behind it, for example, is 2W. W tells the problem with it. W means it's wet. Okay, so Class 2W or 3W or 4W will mean I'll probably have to tile it, or if I don't tile it, I may not get in there every spring on time. It is a limitation to using it. Could be very productive soil, but it's got that limitation I have to overcome. There's a 2E there. E means erosion. That means there are some limitations on this land because it's got some slope to it because it's going to erode. Typically, for most of our farms, northeast Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, most of those in this area, at least the upper Midwest, erosion seems to be the main factor that limits its ability. So in other words, on an E land, I'm not going to go a corn, soybean, fall moldboard plow situation. If it's a 2, I may just be able to get by with a little bit of contouring or reducing my tillage. If it's a 3 or a 4, I may actually have to go with terraces to be able to farm that land. Still, could be productive land, but the more limited it is, the more expensive it is, it's going to be to overcome and farm that land, and the less value it should be. They don't show Class 5 in this diagram. Class 5 typically is bottom land, and 5 is almost always a W. 5 is generally not considered croppable because it's always too wet, and it's so low you can't even tile it out. Maybe used for pasture, maybe very good for pasture, but typically is not croppable land. Then you've got Class 6, Class 7. There is even a Class 8. Class 8 land is basically hillsides, rock outcrops, and that kind of stuff. Not useful for anything, as we'll look at it. So that's our land capability classification system. You're going to be asked to look these up on your farm and actually give me a brief explanation of what you think the quality of your farm are, summarize what you think after you've looked up the land limitations about your farm operation, and describe it according to its land capability classes. Two other things you're going to look up, or one other thing basically, is erodibility. There are a couple factors related to erosion. One is the K factor, and I realize a lot of writing here. But what the K factor does, it represents both the susceptibility of that soil to erosion and how fast it will run off. Soils that are high in clay tend to have a low K value. Why? You said, well, they run off fairly easy. Yeah, but clay actually is very resistant to being detached. It kind of glues to itself. And since it glues to itself, it's going to hold itself in place. If it gets detached and broke loose, yeah, it's going to wash real easy. But it's tough to detach it, so it's not easily to erode. Sandy soils also tend to have a low K value. Why? Well, they're easy to detach. You can blow them a little bit, but they're so heavy, so big, that they're hard to move. Okay, so they have a low K value. Your medium textured soils, especially soils with silt in them, have the highest K values, and they may be all the way up to a 0.4 K value. The higher the K value, the more easily it's going to erode, the more carefully you're going to have to manage it. Okay, as you look at that. The other value you're going to have you look up is your T value. Now your T value is how much we can tolerate. It's a soil loss tolerance is the maximum amount of soil loss in tons per acre per year that can be tolerated and still permit a high level of crop productivity to be sustained economically indefinitely. I know I read that to you, but essentially what we're saying is I can accept this much loss per year and still maintain my productivity in the long term. T values for most of our fields are going to be between 3 and 5 tons per acre per year. It means there's enough soil there, there's enough management that keeps replenishing it, that keeps it fertile, and it keeps rebuilding more soil. The soils that are more eroded at this point, that have been poorly managed in the past, will have the lower T value. The soils that are in better shape, particularly the flatter soils, will have the higher tolerable values. So those two values together tell you a lot about your farm. If it has a high K value, it tells you you're going to have to manage it to control erosion. If it has a low K value, it means erosion is not as critical. If it has a high T value, it means you can tolerate a little bit more. If it has a low T value, again, you're going to have to be very careful with it. Pull those into your land capability class. It helps you determine how you're going to manage your farm. And that's what this whole class is about, is managing your cropland. Here's two more factors that give you information on how much management your farm is going to need. So with that, we have an assignment on web soil survey. I'm going to pause this, go to the web soil survey site, and kind of walk you through some quick steps on the web soil survey site to help you through that. Okay, this is the home page for web soil survey. You should be able to get at it with a link in the assignment, or like I said, the way I got it, I just type web soil survey in Google and it comes up usually on the top of the list. Now the first page is kind of a welcome page. It's got some instructions on it. You can work through that. To actually start it, you just need to click on the big green button there in the center and click Start Web Soil Survey, and that will bring it up for you. Depending on your internet connection speed, this may take some time. Some load faster, some load slower. Mine seems to be slow right now. I'll pause it and let it get loaded. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention, which caught myself also, is you do need to use Internet Explorer. At least currently, Firefox, at least the version of Firefox I have on this computer, is not working with the web soil survey. So if you can't get it to work properly or get some error messages, you might go ahead and just use Internet Explorer. You're using that anyway, so probably didn't run into that. So, like I mentioned in the PowerPoint, the first thing we need to do is define an area of interest. To do that, I need to get it narrowed down to my location. Similar to what we did when we were at the USGS map server, you can use the magnifying glass and zoom in and the pan tool to move around. The other thing is, with web soil survey, I can go over here and expand the address, and I can actually just type in the zip code of my nearest town and press enter, and that will zoom in this case, to Kelmer, Iowa, which will get me close. And as you can see here, Kelmer is on there. Doesn't actually have it zoomed into my farm yet, but at least I've got some roads here and some towns of reference. I can now grab that magnifying glass at the top, and similar to before, I just draw a box around where the farm is at by holding the mouse button, left mouse button down and dragging around there. Probably get in just a little bit closer with zooming in to our farm here, so it comes up on my map. Once that's up, I'm going to draw in my area of interest. Now there are two area of interest buttons. Both those are up at top. They have AOI on it. One is a red rectangle. If you have a rectangular farm, you can use that. The other is kind of a polygon tool. I'm going to at least show you the polygon tool. I'll get it started and I'll pause it and finish it. But that's a polygon tool. That's what I'm going to do there. And I'm going to just start on the top of my farm here. Click, click. Every time I click, it's like drawing a big rubber band around the farm. Click. And every time I click, I'm dropping an anchor for that rubber band. I'll pause that and finish it. Okay, when you're done doing that, just double click. Double click will finish it. Then it'll say creating AOI. It may take a minute or so for that to create it. And then you'll see, as you see on my map, a map with some hashes in it. And that's the area underneath there. It's going to clip out those soils for us. To get my soil map, I go to my tab here and click on soil map. That then will create a soil map right on the heads up right up here on the screen. It shows me a map, and over on the left hand side will actually show you the different soils and how many acres are there as we've got that. Next I'm going to do is click printable version, and printable version is right there. I can give that a name, and I'm just going to call it Tad's Farm, or whatever you guys have for your farm. If you got a farm name, great. Make up one if you want, and then we're going to click view. And I'll pause while that's going. And most of you will probably get a message like this when it comes up. If your pop-ups blocker is on, and most of you have it on because the pop-ups are those irritating ads that come at you, you may have it says, do you have pop-ups enabled? It says, okay, yeah, I evidently do. And you'll see up here on the yellow, there's a yellow line on top. It says pop-ups. To see this pop-up additional, click options here. I'm going to just click on that yellow bar, and I'm always going to allow pop-ups from this site. That'll allow me to work with this. I'll click yes. Then I'll go ahead and after it comes up, click printable version again. And that there, once it's ready to go here, we will do the same thing and then click view again. This time it'll create a PDF file, and I'll pause again. Okay, when you get all done, you should have a PDF file like this. It comes up and uploaded. It's got all the information about those soils right there and loaded for you. All you got to do is go File and save this PDF map. And then that's part of the assignment you need to upload. The next step is there are some questions it's asking you about this. So we're going to go back to the Web Soil Survey now that I've got my map created. And I'm going to go to the Soil Data Explorer tab, which is the next tab over. Under the Soil Data Explorer tab, this is where I can find information. Over on the left-hand side, you can look through these. For example, I think vegetative productivity, that's the one we tend to have the problem with right now. I can expand that by clicking that little down arrow thing. And here's my crop productivity index. If I click on that and view my rating, it says I can't find it for that area. So that you may not find. There are other things you can find. So I'm going to let you search a little bit. I'm not going to tell you where it's all at. Most of it will be in this area here somewhere. If it's not under this, okay, on that tab has suitability limitations for use, you may have to go to Soil Properties and Qualities tab, which is the next tab over, to find even more information. So with that, I'm going to let you work with the assignment. Again, if you have questions, make sure you let me know. Just type it in the Q&A section of the message board, or type it up in my journal. And I can even come in to Blackboard Collaborate and help walk you through this if we can do it during times when you both have access to that. So I think you'll find it, if you spend some time with this, I think you'll find it fairly easy to navigate once you get a handle on it. May take you a little bit of time to sort it out, but it is a very powerful tool as we manage crops in this country. So with that, I'll just stop this and let you work on your assignment.